All right, here we are, 1 o'clock. Hi, everybody. Welcome. Good afternoon. Welcome to the second event in this three-part series developed as a collaboration between Yiara magazine and the Concordia Undergraduate Journal of Art History, or CUJAH. While I have you here, I'll just quickly invite you to join us again next Wednesday, January 27th, same time, same place, for the final conversation in this series. In Space, we activate research, teaching, and initiatives through various activities. So we're very pleased to collaborate with student-led initiatives to create interactive experiences such as this one. I will let the organizers tell you more about today's event and introduce our guest speakers. But before doing so, I'll just say a few remarks. This event is being recorded and we are live streaming at CU Space on Facebook if you wanted to follow along there or share it. We invite you to activate the chat with any comments that you might have, and please choose from the scroll down list to activate the chat for panelists and attendees so that everybody here gets to see what comments you're making if you're open to that. If you have a particular question that you would like our if you use the Q&A proper to type out your question there, it'll just make our lives a little bit easier to not have to keep eyes on a bunch of different places. Or ultimately, the best thing to do is just to raise your virtual hand and you can unmute yourself and ask your question during the question period using your voice if you're comfortable doing so. All right, so without further ado, I'm passing things over to CUJAH's Kari. Over to you, Kari.
Thanks, Anna, and thanks Space for hosting us again for our Coffee Date series this month. As Anna said, I'm Kari. I'm the editor-in-chief of CUJAH, which stands for the Concordia Undergraduate Journal of Art History. Welcome to the second part of our speaker series, which is a collaboration between CUJAH and Yiara magazine that continues throughout January. As the two art history publications on campus, we thought it would be a great opportunity to combine our efforts and partner on a webinar series to showcase different members from our creative community and foster a space for conversation, exchange, and learning. Today, we are very fortunate to be joined by Esther Calixte and Mahlet as our next guests. And before we introduce them to you, we want to say a few words about our respective organizations. So CUJAH is a student-run academic publication that aims to showcase the talents of Concordia's art history and fine arts students. We also host the annual Concordia Art History Conference, as well as various events throughout the year.
Hi, everyone. I'm Amel, co-editor-in-chief of Yiara magazine. Yiara is a student-run undergraduate feminist art publication based in Montreal. Yiara publishes an annual print issue of curated student writing and artwork, organizes a variety of workshops, discussions, and lectures, as well as an end-of-year vernissage and magazine launch. Before passing this over to our guests, we'd first like to acknowledge the unceded Indigenous lands we're virtually gathered on today, the traditional territory of the Ganagahaga Nation, who are recognized as the custodians of these lands and waters. CUJAH, also known as Montreal, has long served as a gathering place for many First Nations and now is home to many diverse people. So we also ask that if you're not currently in Montreal or CUJAH, to please take a moment to think about the lands that you are residing on and occupying. So today we're very fortunate to be joined by our two guests, Esther Calixte and Mahlet. To introduce Esther, Esther is a painter and body hair activist born in Longueuil of Haitian and Ivorian descent. Esther's artistic practice also expands through various art forms such as photography, fashion, and poetry. Her work addresses topics such as beauty, identity, individuality, and vulnerability in various forms that are often inspired by her personal life and culture. She has recently completed her bachelor's degree at Concordia University in painting and drawing. Her work has been featured in the Canadian Art Magazine, in Glamour UK, TV Nouvelle, and more. She has exhibited her work in several group shows, such as Uma at Radharani, and This Is What Compels Me to Compel Them at Leave Art. And Esther is joined in conversation today by Mahlet. Mahlet is an interdisciplinary artist who produces their work through digital and film still photography, as well as audio recordings. Mahlet explores subjects of race, gender, sexuality in order to question relationships between kin and the relationship they have with themselves. Mahlet is also a community organizer and the founder of the group Justice for Black Lives Winnipeg, where she advocates for abolition and safety of all Black people. She has curatorial experience with being involved with Patterns Collective and co-curating work for Window Winnipeg, the exhibition called Joy is More Than Just a Feeling. Their work has been shown at the University of Winnipeg's Gallery 1CO3, Window Winnipeg, Flip Fest, and in the Artist Run Center, T-Bays in Toronto, Ontario. So Esther and Mahlet, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks so much. So yeah, Esther, before we get into any questions, your outfit looks so great. I just have to say that first. you're glowing, the yellow, look at the hair, the satin. Is that silk?
Yeah, well, yeah, it's kind of like satin more.
Oh, nice. Okay, that's out of the way now. Like, to acknowledge that. She looks great. So yeah, as Amel mentioned, like you do photography and painting, all this different stuff. But I feel like to start off with this artist talk is talking about your painting journey, because you paint Black women in very abstract ways, but also very realistic, using bright colors, situating themselves in very like real situations, like, you know, waxing or shaving. So yeah, do you want to talk a bit about your painting journey and how you got to that place now?
Yeah, so before, because like I used to be in visual arts since like high school, because that's when I really started painting. Like I really loved drawing, and my mom knew that, so she put me into like an art program in high school, and I started painting, and I fell in love with painting ever since. That's what I've been doing. So I've been trying to discover myself, and it's mostly like later on, I think in college, because I went to Dawson afterwards in visual arts, and that's when I started really painting a lot of Black women, but they were always inspired by me. So I used to paint myself before just creating these characters. So it was always me. I was practicing a lot and trying to like get my face properly, because I was mostly into realism, because like, to be honest, at the time I thought like realism was like the only right art, because like every time I would see like Picasso work or abstract stuff, I'd be like, what is this? This isn't art, you know? So like for so long I was like, realism, this is it, you know? And I remember like always painting and being so frustrated while painting, but yet I loved painting, so I didn't understand why I was so frustrated. And it's like until I got to Concordia that I realized what was getting me so frustrated was realism itself. I didn't actually like painting realism. So I really discovered that when I had this teacher who like kind of forced us, because he was tired, because he was an abstract painter. And he was tired that everyone was always using pictures as references. So for a project, he's like, you guys are not allowed to use pictures. And I was like, whoa, it was like super scary, because I always use pictures, you know, especially myself. So I was like, okay, what am I gonna do? So and that really pushed me personally, and I kind of realized how fun it was to not like be like have a picture and kind of like want to make it look exactly like the image. And so it's from there that I kind of grew and kind of like tried to like after during that summer I started really exploring and kind of like just inventing stuff, and I was like, yo, this is really fun. So ever since then, like I continued to like I started painting Black women from like my imagination. Obviously they kind of resembled me because of my features, because you know I was basing it a bit on me, but like also like creating different characters and different scenarios. But it's really I think at the end of 2018 that I really found my style, and that really happened out of the blue. Like I had a project and I had to do 2 paintings, but I didn't know I had to do 2 paintings. So I just did only 1. And like the day before I found out that I had to do a second one. So I was like, oh my gosh. So I just took a random canvas in my locker, and I just painted a person like just like that. And I was like, oh my gosh, this looks amazing. And ever since then, like in the beginning of 2019, I just started, you know, painting these Black women really like, because I was always painting like with like a lot of colors, because I feel like I just love colors. Honestly, I love colorful things. I love bright things. You know, honestly, it's like I don't know if you've ever watched like Hairspray.
Oh yes,
like
all the
yeah,
colors.
okay, so that movie is so colorful, and I'm just so attracted to like these bright pastel colors, you know, and that's what I kind of like have in my work often. And so yeah, so ever since then, that's when it started. But I didn't used to paint women with body hair. It was very rare. And it really happened because I was like in a dark place. And, you know, as a woman with like chest hair, and a woman that's very hairy. So it would happen, like, I think in college, when I just randomly started painting my struggles, just randomly, because I felt like I was so shy and insecure, like, back then. So I wasn't able to verbalize what I was going through. And so I was able to paint it. And so it would feel very nice to, like, kind of like being able to express myself and say what I was going through without, like, having to say with actual words,
Yeah.
and having to say, this is me, I just show, and people, give their comments, and it happened again, I think, at Concordia in the beginning, like, I think second year, I'm not too sure. And then I kind of, like, it's after really my photography project, Lavender project, that I really was like, okay, I'm making a decision to always have Black characters with body hair.
Right.
And so that's my journey.
No, you like, not to use like the same term, like, you paint a picture really well. Like, I think you really broke down like your journey in a very different way, from like university and then years like experience, from high school to university, and your experiences, and like being really like confused and being like, I don't want to paint like this, but people challenging you too. And I think that's really important with an artist's work, is like to challenge yourself and to make yourself feel uncomfortable. But you came up with this really beautiful painting, right? Like you said, you thought you only had to make one, but you made two, and then you discovered that too as well. And so, like, I think the transition to the next question I was curious about, you did touch on it a little bit, like your transformation from painting just like Black women, but painting Black women with like body hair, and you seeing yourself in your paintings, because like yourself, from what you said before, like you've always been inspired by your own self to paint other Black women, right? So do you want to talk a bit about that, in the sense where, like, have you ever separated that? Like, have you ever separated yourself from like the paintings you make, or just it's always been inspired by specifically like you, and like then painting Black women with body hair as well, and like, or like the depictions of them waxing as well, if that makes sense.
So I always felt like I was very comfortable, I was mostly comfortable painting myself. Every time I tried painting other people, it's like I felt I was disconnected from that person. Even though they were family members, I felt a disconnect when I had to paint that person, and I didn't feel as inspired. But I guess I use myself as a muse, because, like, honestly, sometimes I would ask people to pose and they wouldn't do what I wanted, and so, but I could do it, so I'm just like, you know what, I'm just gonna do it myself. So it would happen. So, but I felt like I was so used to, like, because of I was often like doing like realist paintings, I was always practicing like doing my own face, so I kind of like got the hang of it. And like when I started like painting these characters, I kind of still kept small features, but like I was trying to like explore and then create different characters as well. But yeah, it really transitioned after like my Lavender project, because like it's inspired by me, because I understand myself, I understand what I'm going through, and I feel like when I express ideas that I connect emotionally, they tend to be the best works, because I understand what I painted, I understand, and I felt like while painting I was feeling the emotion, and so but yeah, and I feel like do I talk about the Lavender project, or?
It's like you keep mentioning hints of it, I'm like, just wait, we're gonna get there. But like, yeah, pre-warning, Lavender project, amazing project, but we'll get a little bit more into that in a bit. But if you want to talk about it now, but it's also up to you, but we can also kind of get into
I'm gonna follow you.
Cool. Because you talk about like, it's interesting how when that saying of like, who knows yourself better than yourself, right? You know yourself best, and you, even to ask anyone else to paint you, or like if you're asking other people, like as you said before, like I've had experiences where people like, I don't know how to pose. How do I pose for this photo? Or like, how do I pose for this painting? And it's like, do whatever you think is best. So it's interesting to hear from you, like where like you would paint people, then you're like, you know what? I'm my own muse, and I know myself the best, and I can depict myself in the best representation, better than anyone else, right? So I wonder also too if that like kind of plays into like I'm thinking about feminism, thinking about your body, being a body hair activist, and what does that mean for you as like a person? Do you feel like feminism, and what does it mean to be a body hair activist but also an artist, and how those different types of worlds come together in your art, and you as an individual as well?
So when I like at first I wasn't I didn't label myself as a body hair activist, because like when I first started showing my chest hair, it wasn't about feminism, it wasn't about activism, it was just like I had to free myself, and that was it. It's later on that I kind of like continue doing self-photography projects that someone labeled me as a body hair activist. I didn't know that was a thing, at the time. I really didn't know. So I was like, oh my gosh, is that real? So I looked it up. I'm like, oh my gosh, I guess I'm technically a body hair activist. So I kind of like took that title. I was like, okay. So I went with it. But concerning like feminism and stuff, for me, like feminism is about like, gender equality. But like for me, when it comes to like body hair, to me, it's mostly about like, hey, if I like a man that's like that has body hair is like he's allowed to have body hair, is allowed to like not shave. And I feel like, hey, we should be allowed to, as women, and plus because it's completely natural. And we're so like, I guess, brainwashed by society that to us when we see body hair on a woman, we're like, what is that? This is disgusting. Or but on a man, it's not disgusting, right? But like on a woman, it's seen as disgusting, dirty, all these things. And like when it naturally grows, some women have beards and stuff like that, And so I've had so many messages from women telling me like, oh my gosh, I thought I was the only one with chest hair. And so it's like, because everyone's like removing their hair, like most women, so we think, oh no, it's normal for women to not have hair. But in reality, it's more normal for women to have body hair, And so with that, I kind of like was kind of like challenging this idea. And yeah, and it was like, yeah, anyways, yeah, I think I answered the question properly.
No, I think that goes into a really good conversation about, yeah, why is it seen as very normalized that men or like men presenting people can have hair, but people who are femme or femme presenting, it's very dirty and like it looks to people it's like not good, right? But actually hair is actually good for you. Like the way you have your hair on your head, it keeps you warm. Like the hair on your arms, it keeps you warm. Your eyebrows, like I think I was watching a video of yours where you were describing like the reason why we have eyebrow hair is to deflect from the sweat so it doesn't go on our eyes, because sweat's not going to be fun in your eyes, like that's just not a fun time. So it's interesting, yeah, like it should be very normalized, and I feel like you normalize it a lot in your work and just like bring it to the forefront where like, yeah, body hair is normal. It's not like this weird thing, quote unquote, or like disgusting thing where like it should be normalized. And like I think you do that really good job with your work. I feel like from my own experiences, I never saw Black women growing up with body hair. Like I was always told like, yeah, the minute you hit puberty, like high school, you shave your legs and like that's all you have to do. Do you feel like body hair shaming and body hair just generally the conversation is talked about within the Black community, but specifically with like Black women, femme, trans folks, non-binary folks, I feel like that conversation can even get larger because people that grow body hair because they're just because they have no choice but to take certain like hormones and stuff like that, and it just happens. But like just generally, what is your opinion on that? And like you feel like it's talked enough about in the Black communities, but specifically with like Black women?
To be honest, it's not talked about at all, like 0%, like not at all. I think that ever since I became a body hair activist, it was mostly, I guess, the white people and communities that were more like talked more about that, and having like armpit hair and all that was like like a symbol of like, feminism and like revolution and all that. And so like Black women, they don't really like, there's not a lot of Black people that talk about that. I don't know any actually that do. And so like when I would get messages from other Black women, they would always be surprised, because they don't see people like me, a Black woman who's showing her body hair as well. And so at first I didn't even realize, it's later on that I realized, oh my gosh, I don't see any Black like community groups on social media that talk about this. And it's like very like, it's like very taboo, more taboo in the community. And like I remember somebody asked me a question like that. They said they kind of asked me why, and I was like, I think it's because we have so much to worry about that we don't like think, like we don't think about body hair. Like this is probably the last thing, because like we're fighting for our rights, we're fighting to be like considered as human beings like everyone else and all that, and not to be killed, so we have so much on our mind, so much to fight for that. So that's like something that's like the last thing on our mind,
Yeah.
But like honestly, I don't have as many Black people, Black women that follow me. I do have many, but not as many, and they're always so shocked and surprised, and they tell me about it. Oh my gosh, I have chest hair too. Like I thought I was alone. Everyone thinks that they're alone. I'm like, if I just took everyone that thinks they're alone, there would be hundreds, like thousands,
Right.
And it's really like really interesting. And so but like when it comes to like my personal identity and all that, when I started doing that, I obviously did that for myself. I started being a body hair activist for myself because I was tired of hiding and always pulling up my shirt, and like it felt like a really huge burden. And so, but like I remember it was last year, well, 2020. I can't remember which month, but a few months ago that my aunts, because I'm half Haitian and half Ivorian, and so my aunts, my Ivorian aunts, she contacted me. She's like, it's completely normal that you're this hairy, and she kind of explained to me that in her side, well, in my Ivorian side of my family, that women are very, very hairy, and it goes all the way down to like my ancestors, because I'm from the Way tribe, and like in the Way tribe, women were very, very hairy, and like it was seen as beautiful at the time. Like it was like really like it was gorgeous, and they had a lot of hair on their head too. And so I thought it was really interesting that I found that out like later on. I was like, why am I learning this now? I was struggling. If I knew this,
where were y'all 10 years ago when I was 11? But you know what? It'll make up for it now. You're like, okay, this makes sense.
I was like, seriously, it's now you tell me this? But I was like, wow, I'm happy though. I'm happy at least I know this, that like, in my like my culture, in my ancestors, and like it was seen as something beautiful and something completely normal, especially for my tribe, And so like even women with beards, and things like that. So I was like, wow. So it doesn't come from like really far. Cause I remember I saw, cause I thought, I was the only person in my family that I had chest hair. But I remember I saw a cousin, I didn't say anything, but I saw her and I saw she had a bit of hair. And I'm like, I went to go see my dad. I'm like, Dad, I saw that my cousin has a bit of chest hair, and I'm just wondering, is it on our side of the family? And he really didn't know, But like my dad is a hairy man, so but like even my aunt was like, you see your dad's very hairy, so it's from that side, So so
that's interesting, because when you see it from your dad, you're like, oh, it's my dad. But when it's like from your aunts and your other like women like ancestors, right? It feels even better, because like if you're like, of course my head's in a very like normalized society, like of course my dad's super hairy, of course other men are super hairy. But when you hear from your aunt saying, oh yeah, we're all hairy, and you're like, oh, that's such a like good relief, because you're just like, okay, I feel a bit better now. And like I feel like at the same time too, your activism goes very ancestral as well. It's like, this is what your ancestors necessarily wanted you to do. I don't know if I'm making like a jump. I'm like, your ancestors want this for you. Like this is like your path in life, right?
Yeah, it's like they appeared. Like it's like if like I didn't know them, but now they're here on me, and I'm like, where is this coming from?
Yeah, I think that also makes it. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, yeah. You can go.
I think that also touches on spirituality, because you also touch on spirituality in your like on a personal level, but also artistic level. You want to talk about a bit about that, how that plays into your artwork, and just how that came to be? Because I think that's super interesting. Where you can be a very spiritual person, but that can also be translated to your artwork as well.
So basically I'm like, if you want to label me, I guess I'm a Messianic Jew. So basically I'm like, I believe in Jesus as my savior, and I practice like the laws in the Bible and all the holidays. So I don't celebrate Christmas and all these things. But yeah, so my relationship with my body is connected to my relationship with God, Yehovah. So I had to really pray a lot and work on myself to get to where I am, and have like talk to God, because I often talk to God, and I would cry to him and say, why did you create me like this? Because I was all alone. Like I didn't want to be a hairy girl, because I have a sister and she's not hairy at all, So I was like, why me? So I would pray a lot and then have conversations and cry so much and be really depressed. And I kind of like had to like work on myself, but also like be guided by him. And like, I remember I had a conversation and he was like letting me know that I wasn't the problem, it was society. And so like, that's why it's like my relationship with my art and God is very connected. And I like to like sometimes show spirituality a bit in like my work, and kind of like, because I feel like people are not aware that there's a spiritual world that's around us that we don't see, and how that affects us in many ways. Like even in the Bible it says like, or even our words can kill people, it can kill, like it hurts, it hurts people. And it's because like, even if we say these things, we don't see how it affects people, and it affects people spiritually, in the spiritual realm that we don't see. And so like for me, it's like really important to kind of have that also in my work sometimes, and like kind of to be aware that we're not really in control of our lives, that there's outside forces that are also, affecting our path and stuff like that.
No, it's amazing. I think that's a really amazing way to sum it up. Because yeah, like even like in terms of like karma, right? Those type of things. It's like whatever you say will come back to you, and like you have no control over that. I think that's really interesting and like kind of scary. It's like, well, I have in God's hands or whoever's out there. Like your my life is in your hands. Good luck, please. Don't get me in trouble with anyone. But it's really interesting how you're able to like be very vocal about it too, and like and talk about it with your work and like feel very comfortable too. Because I feel like sometimes I feel like the art world is sometimes very not happy. Like I feel like the art world and the religion clash sometimes in a way, but it's really beautiful to see that comes out in your work and you're very open about it as well and very vulnerable too. I guess going into the lavender project, because that's like I feel like everyone's waiting for that because it's your amazing project and it's so beautiful and like breathtaking and just colorful. Do you want it started in 2019 for people that don't know, and it sheds light to your body hair activism, and I feel like that started a lot of your conversations and how your Instagram and your social media presence kind of like blossomed and transformed. But you can talk more about it than I can. But
so what happened exactly is in 2019, I was struggling with my body image. As a hairy woman, I was going to the aesthetician and like doing like electrolysis, which was extremely painful. I used to have sideburns, but then with electrolysis, I have way less hair on my face. But anyways, and then I kind of like over time, over the years growing up and removing my chest hair, my body would react really badly, and like I would get like really bad ingrown hair, especially my chest, because my skin there is extremely sensitive. So anyways, it's extremely sensitive, and like I was getting terrible bumps and they're red, and it was just really bad. And I kind of like had a like conversation with myself. I'm like, why am I removing my body hair and my body's like fighting against me? And I didn't quite understand. I'm like, if this is normal, if I'm supposed to just remove it because that's just what it is, I'm supposed to remove it, why is my body fighting back, And it kind of like with this conversation and like kind of over time, because during the winter I wasn't shaving, it was like, yes, winter, we don't need to shave anymore, So I was like just letting my body be, but then I would still like remove my chest hair a bit. And like I remember my esthetician's like, oh, because I was removing like just above because I wanted to like wear crop tops and I didn't want the hair to like be seen. So she was like, okay, so when are we gonna remove it completely? And I was just like not sure, and I was like, not yet, not yet, because I was still like trying to understand how I felt about it, because I was getting used to it. I was starting to like it, because when it was completely, when it was completely off, I was like, I felt disconnected from myself. I felt like, oh, now I'm a regular girl, like I don't like, who is this person? It wasn't me anymore. And because I got so used to it, and like so over time, I liked sewing sometimes, like ever since I was a little girl, but I didn't sew as much. Like my mom and my grandparents sew, so I guess it's like in my blood. But like, but yeah, so I kind of was like, I went into this fibers class at Concordia, and like we didn't have any fashion classes, so that was the closest thing. So we learned how to crochet and do all sorts of stuff, and like we had the sewing machine, and I was like, yo, I want to make something, And so later on, I was like, okay, what can I do? What can I do to like free myself? Because I'm tired. I want to set myself free. I'm tired of having this burden. I'm tired of being depressed. I'm tired of all this. And I want to just live my life authentically, So I kind of removed all my pictures on Instagram. Like before, I was never showing body hair. I was always completely shaved, And I removed all my pictures, and I was like, yo, it's time to start over. And I went to Fabricville, and I was like, okay, I want to make this dress that like has a side where it shows my chest hair, but I could also flip it and it hides my chest hair in case that I feel like I'm not ready,
Yeah.
So I kind of like went to, and I was going often. I was going because like I used to work like right next to it. So I was going to Fabricville and like looking around. I'm like, oh, and this color captured my eye, the lavender fabric. And I was like, because I didn't want to make it pink. I was like, no, pink is gonna be too girly. But then lavender seems like, mature. And it was so interesting because like even the definition of lavender is really like about like a maturing feminine body, and it was really interesting. And I didn't know at the time. I just felt like I wanted this, and it was so interesting. And it's like this girl going into like becoming a woman, and then I just chose that fabric, and I kind of experimented. Like I didn't know how to sew really. Like I was just practicing, and I was like, just do this. So I did that dress. It took me like a month, I think. And I was like, okay, I feel ready. So I did my makeup, I did my hair, and then I went to this park that was next to my house, and I decided to take pictures, like really, because I used to model as well. So like,
Oh,
yeah, I used to model. I was like doing fashion shows and stuff. So then I'm like, okay, I know how to model. So
I
I'm
was
just
ready. I'm
gonna
good.
pose. So I was like, okay. So then I posed in front of the camera and like took these pictures with this lavender colored dress, and I posted them on Instagram for the first time, and I was super stressed. Like I turned off my Instagram because I was so scared. And like I would also post like poetry that I would write, and like just like small texts as well. And and my motto is on power on montre nos pas avec class, so we show our body hair with class, because I wanted to show that you could be beautiful with your body hair, and that body hair is beautiful. And oftentimes it wasn't seen that way, you know. Some people might think that sometimes like when women show their body hair is very provocative, but I wanted to do it, I guess, in an elegant way, because I wanted to show, this could be in a magazine one day, you know what I mean? So I wanted to show it like that in a different way. And so that's what I decided to do. And it was really, really scary. And but then it was the beginning of my new life, of my life, like, of freedom. And ever since then, like, from the reactions that I got, I was like, okay, this is needed, this was the right thing. But in my head, I wasn't doing that for others, like, at all. I was like, I'm done. I know that in art, that's the best way I could express myself. Art it was always like the way I could express, like, emotionally what I was going through. So I was like, this is how I'm gonna do it, because I didn't want to, like my friends, like, none of my friends knew that I had chest hair. None of my friends, zero, like, all my life. I was always hiding. I didn't want anybody to know. And so I was like, I can't be like going to them individually. Oh, by the way, guys, I'm hairy. Like, I didn't want to do that. So I'm like, what is a way that I could just show and be like done with it? So I did that. I posted them on Instagram, and everyone got to see it, and they got to judge, and like, kind of like, because we all have that internally. We have this idea about body hair, especially on women. And so, like, they got to question, and I was glad that it started conversations. And especially because in general we mostly see, sometimes picture with like armpit hair is more normalized, with leg hair it's more normalized, but chest hair was completely out of the ordinary for most people. People didn't even know that women could grow chest hair or even a beard. And so for them it was like a huge shock. And so that's what the project is about. So it was like, it started in 2019, and then, like, later on, then it just blossomed and continued in 2020 and until now.
No, I want to touch on a couple things you mentioned, because the fact that like I didn't know that like the definition of lavender talks about transformation and this whole like womanhood. Like, you can almost attach to the womanhood, and the fact that you like your life has definitely transformed since then too. Like, do you feel like that happened coincidentally, or do you feel like this happened like intentionally? Like the fact that like lavender, and then like you realize this whole part of your life has talking about your chest hair to everyone, not just your friends. And like I think that's really funny too, because like friends like, what? I had no clue. I've been to her house. I've seen her change. What's going on? And they're like, oh, okay, cool. Like, it was, I feel like also too, kind of touching on both questions, like the fact that you did it just like with everyone. What, like, you put on Instagram, okay, I'm done now. I said what I need to say. And I think that's really interesting too. Like, do you feel like that was also a way to just tell everyone easily, and rather than just like having these intimate conversations with one person at a time, or like a friend group, or like people outside your family essentially as well? So I don't know if you remember both questions, but
Well, I remember the last one.
Okay, I'll go back to the other one.
But yeah, of course it was much easier. I would feel just uncomfortable having individual conversations with everyone. It would just be ridiculous. Like, I was like, no, this is not happening. And I feel like, because Instagram is such a big platform, everyone's just gonna see it. I don't need to talk to everyone individually. And if they want to have a conversation with me, they will. They'll see the project, and then they'll talk to me afterwards. And I was like, this is better for me, because I'm like introverted, and I'm like, okay, like, I'm not gonna just put myself and be like, hi, I'm gonna talk to all of you. I have a secret. Like, no. So I was just like, I'm just gonna make this beautiful project and post it like that. And wait, what was the other question?
Honestly, it's fine. I came up with spots. We can move on to the next question, because you mentioned Instagram being like this tool, right? And like everyone's gonna see it on Instagram, or people that do have Instagram, and I feel like you post on Instagram pretty often, and you have you curate your feed very specifically and very intentionally as well. Do you feel like your Instagram feed now is almost a continuation of the lavender projects, but in different variations, where you like play with different outfits and you play with the ways you show your body hair and stuff like that? Do you feel like you're doing a lavender project without saying it's actually a lavender project, or just it's a different way of presenting yourself online as well now?
I think I remembered your first question.
Oh.
But yeah, it was about womanhood. It was about womanhood. Yes, okay. I didn't intentionally know that the lavender like color meant like your femininity and womanhood. I didn't know it meant that. It's later on when I researched, I was like, oh my gosh, this is perfect. But going into your question now, yes, my next projects after like my next self-photography project after the lavender project, I call them my lavender babies because they're a continuation of the same message of concerning femininity and beauty, and to kind of like, you know, have this conversation around body hair, and especially in areas that aren't as, you know, shown or as common. Yeah, they're a continuation of that. And I feel like, yes, on my Instagram feed, I'm just like really organized, and I just don't like chaos. Like honestly, my room is like plain. You know, there's some of my paintings, like this is not my room, it's my cousin's room, because like my sister's in my room right now, and she's like she had class, so I'm in that room, but it's very like there's paintings, but it's very white, and she's always like, let's decorate the room, and I'm like, no, my mind, that's just how my mind is.
Too much. I can't, my brain can't compute it.
It would be chaotic for me. I can't, it's just no. And so like for me, for my Instagram feed, I just wanted it to be organized and have a pattern, because for me that's just how I like to see things. I'm like organized like that. And so I just wanted to make it like nice, because in like for me, my Instagram feed is like a gallery, my own, you know, art gallery, photography gallery. And so I want people to enter and just see pictures of my self-photography projects that I've done and things like that. And you know, yeah, so yeah, on that account. But on my art account, it's my paintings, you know, and all that work. Because like obviously for my pictures, I also like sometimes I do continue sewing and making my own outfits. Not all of them are. If they're my outfit, I write it. But I thought it was like I wanted to continue practicing, and like I wanted to because I felt like I want to kind of challenge myself and like make these outfits that I feel like are really nice and that would look nice on me, and pose with them and stuff like that. And so for me, I feel like it's really like social media, like Instagram is a really interesting platform because it reaches a lot of people. And on Instagram, you see all different types of people. You see all different body types, different, like, I guess, conditions and things like that, like just bodies and people that you've never seen, that's never been shown in the magazine. So you kind of like are always kind of like questioning, like, oh my gosh, I've never seen someone that looks like this, and this is actually really beautiful and things like that. So I feel like Instagram is the best place to have a conversation, because there's like, you see everything, you know. It's not like a magazine where everyone just looks the same in general, you know. And so like you see different types of body types and things like that. And I feel like it's just it's the best tool.
No, truly it is, because yeah, like for myself, I didn't know about your work until getting to know your work for for this as well. And like I was like blatantly, I was like shocked. I was like, oh wow, I never seen like Black women with chest hair, and like, or just like Black women advocating about body hair, because it always seemed like a very like, yeah, taboo thing, as you mentioned in the past. So I feel like, as you mentioned before, yeah, Instagram is like this amazing tool. We can find people that look like you or relate to you. And do you feel like through Instagram, have you found a community of other people as well with talking about body hair and your art specifically too, and people that touch on like parts that are talking about the body and also their art as well? Do you feel like you found like a community in a way, or have you found people you've connected with on a very personal level as well?
So when I first started Lavender Project, I didn't know there was a community out there. Like I didn't know anything. And as later on, I found this movement called January. I don't know if you know it. It's a body hair movement in England. And I saw all these people with body hair, and I was like, whoa, I didn't know there was a community out there. And I felt so comfortable that there was people out there that were creating these movements to, you know, talk about it, and to kind of like, because like there's also a movement called Mi Poil here in Montreal. It's in May. And so it's kind of like the same. It's a movement, body hair movement. And like these kind of things, it's like, oh, in January this month, like women, they don't shave, and you kind of like challenge yourself, and kind of question yourself, like, okay, how do you feel about your body hair? And it's something that I did even before I knew about this community. And so I was like, wow, this is amazing, and it's really, really big in England. And so yeah, I was like, wow, this is great. So I found these two communities, one in Montreal that I didn't even know about. Like it's like later I found out because they posted one of my interviews, and I was like, oh my gosh, there's a body hair movement here. What?
Well, me, I'm in this too. You're like, I'm
So yeah, so I'm like, okay, this is awesome. So but yeah, I was really happy to see other people advocating for that, and I didn't feel as alone, and I was like, hey, there's a lot of people, and yeah, but most people is just like, they don't have chest hair, but there's one, I think Harnam Kaur, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it well. She has a beard, and it's just like I already knew her before. I had seen her her work. Well, she's not like an artist, but she had decided to keep her beard, and it's really, really nice and full too. Like, and so yeah, so I was like, wow, and seeing this other girl, Sophia, I don't even know how to pronounce her last name though, but it's Sophia, and she's like, I think she started the unibrow movement, and she just kept her really thick unibrow, and it's super nice and really, really cool. And so yeah, so I just seeing other women kind of like just setting themselves free and like from these societal beauty standards, and being like, hey, you know what, I'm gonna decide what's beautiful to me. And kind of in my work as well, I want to I express this message that I decided to redefine beauty for myself, because I couldn't find myself in the outside. So I had to look at myself internally and work on myself and be like, you know what, I find myself beautiful. I find my chest hair beautiful, and I'm allowed to decide that. But in all honesty, I wasn't going to talk about this, but to be honest, ever since then, I also didn't know that there was a whole community of men who fetishize hairy women. I didn't know until I became a body hair activist.
Of course.
So
I was always flattered. It's always like, body hair, amazing. Men are like, yes. And it's like, why? No.
So it was really alarming and scary at first. I was like, wow, I was getting like just weird messages, like, yeah, honestly, the weirdest things. And I was like, I didn't even know there was a whole community of men, and there was these fetish pages, and I just found all that. And I was like, yo, I didn't know people fetishize like hairy women. Like, I really didn't know,
Yeah.
And so I was discovering that, and I found out like a lot of men find that really attractive, and I was like, okay.
Like, I'm gonna love me for me. That's great. Love that for you, I guess. We gotta put your Instagram, your personal Instagram, and then also your art Instagram. So people who are watching right now, please follow Esther on both accounts. You can see all her different art, and also as well as the Lavender Project. If you haven't seen it already, you can maybe scroll it. You can look at it right now while you're listening. Kind of going to the next conversation, conversation, which is your piece of your work. The next question I'm going to ask you is talking about your piece, The Conversation, which is acrylic on canvas. And it's like this communal image of Black women coming together in all different acts. Can you describe a bit of your inspiration behind it? Because I think that's one of my favorite pieces. I think that's why I chose it too. I'm like, oh, this is interesting to talk about. Because I just love seeing like when people paint like people together, and the way you put it together is very like, it's interesting and very abstract, and like they're kind of squished together, but like not at the same time. But yeah, I think I'll talk a bit about that one.
Yeah, The Conversation. If I'm gonna be completely honest. So when I painted this, it was at school. I honestly, I used to hate critique, because like when you're in art school, you have to show your work, and people are like, I hate it, I love it, I love these, I love that, I love, all these comments, and like at first you feel like people are attacking you, and I kind of had to look at it a different way and kind of be like, you know what, I'm gonna learn from what they're saying. I'm gonna take in what I feel is actually constructive, and not just a personal opinion, like I don't like this color, And so I decided to take in everything, like every single thing somebody said. I took it. I took it what the teacher said. It, like really for that painting, I took everything. And they were like, oh, some people were like, I like when we see the like the ground of the word, because like the ground is kind of like a washy, like like a paint mixed with water, and you kind of put it as like the background before, like adding different layers. And there was some with this person was like, I really like when we see that in a painting, and then someone else said something else, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna take that in. And even like to be in like a studio space when you see other people's work, and this is what I miss so much, because I was like, you're kind of like in the room and you kind of look at people, what people do, and you're kind of inspired and like, oh my gosh, I really like what they did, and you kind of implement in your work, and it kind of transform your whole work. And like for that painting, I took everything they said, and so nobody had any negative comments. Like they were just like mind blown. They're like, oh my god, you took everything that people said. I was like, yes, I did. Yeah.
Yes, I did.
It's like, they're like, oh, you listened. I was like, yes, I did. I wanted to, like, I was like, this is constructive. It's interesting what you guys are saying. I'm gonna try to do a painting that takes all of that, but also my personal idea. And how I work when I paint, I kind of like have this sketchbook, and I kind of have this idea. My ideas always pop up in my head randomly, like, whoop, like that. And I'm like, oh, this looks really weird and interesting. So I just draw it really quickly, and my sketches are horrible. They're just horrible. But I'm like, I know what I want to do. And so like I created this community, like this group of women, and basically what the painting is this Black women. That was before my lavender project, so they didn't have body hair, sadly, but it's okay. It's still nice. But yeah. So it's these Black women, different like shades and tones, and they're just all with different like hairstyles and jewelry. And I want to kind of get this individuality in this painting, because I felt like often when I hear I guess the media talk about Black people, they kind of like talk about them as a whole, as if we're just like a type of like an object that they're talking about, instead of kind of like talking about the different aspects, and that we're all very different and have different personalities. We're not all the same. We don't all have the same lived experiences. And so in my work, I wanted to kind of capture that through the jewelry and through like their hairstyles and even the way they were expressing themselves. So for me, like the jewelry, it symbolized like prosperity. And even the cakes, like they're all eating dessert, and like it's like dessert is expensive. So and they're naked, because for me nudity, it's about vulnerability and being kind of like just being vulnerable with other people. And they're all just naked talking together and eating cake, and the conversation is between the two people, although the others are listening. They're part of that conversation, but it's really about like women talking about how they could help advance the Black community in the future. And so for me, that's what I painted, and I felt like in a way it touched me in an emotional way, because and often that's why I say that the paintings that touch me, like that are more connected to my emotional side, tend to be the ones that are better. but but yeah, it's because I felt like I didn't have, in general, I've always been to like white schools, and I didn't have this community of Black women that I felt like that I could talk to and things like that. And so it also expressed my internal things that were going on in my life, and just like how I felt. But also I felt like, these women that, women, we give birth, to the next generation and all. So these women that are talking about like, what are we going to do? How do we advance from like now? How do we advance? How do we like go forward? And so I really want to get this kind of picture, and really get these weird angles, and have these like pair arms that are kind of coming into the work, and kind of like, because they're cut off, and so we don't get to see who's that person that's like that's eating the dessert. But it's like kind of to say that we're all part of this conversation here in this work, kind of to include everyone as well. And obviously the table is kind of cut, so obviously there's more people at that table. So it's kind of like, hey, you're also part of this table, so you could join, and eat some dessert and talk. and so yeah, it kind of like also has the idea of even having like barbecue parties and in the backyard with your family and things like that, and kind of like having, it's like a fun moment, and you kind of like, having updates on everyone's life. so yeah, so to me, that's what I was expressing. And I want to create characters that didn't exactly look the same, but kind of like we understood that we're different people and things were going on. There were strong emotions. People are trying to reach, get cake. So it's like really like, it's like if I just captured a moment. And that's what I wanted to do in that painting.
Right. Oh, that's so beautiful. I'm like listening, I'm like, I can't even add anything. So I'm just like, that sounds so wonderful. Just like, yeah, the idea of like, yeah, Black women eating cake naked. And then like thinking about COVID now, the fact that we're all like, at home, like I miss that. I miss being around other people and I miss eating together and I miss like reaching over and I miss like, yeah, like the whole communal aspect. So I feel like this piece of conversation really sums up like that need of like communities, but specifically with Black folks too, right? It's like, it's so important to have those times, but also you talking about too, like the fact that people represent Black folks is just like this monolith, right? Just like only one type of people, and you were able to draw these women in different aspects with different jewelry in the way they're like their hands are moved and stuff like that. I think that's also very beautiful, and that it's very much it's there in that piece. And also you talking about critiques, which brings me to the next question about being a university student, because I'm curious to ask you now. You're like it's from the way you're saying it's like take your critiques when specifically in art school. If I think some people take it very, yeah, especially when you're a first year. It seems like I've never been to art school, but I've heard about, I think about critiques. Ooh, oh my God. Like, you tell me I'm wrong? No, I don't want to hear it. But also, you need that, right? So I think my next question is like, as a recent graduate from Concord University from the Fine Arts faculty, what's the difference between an artist outside of university and then being in university at the same time, like thinking about all those critiques you had and thinking about the way your work has grown, also kind of tying in as well, like what would you give advice to artists that are wanting to maybe go to art school, or maybe artists that like are eventually going to be leaving soon or graduating soon, like how life would be very different. Yeah, if you want to talk about your school experience a bit at being Concordia and being an art student.
Yeah, studios, I miss them. I miss the studios. I miss being like in class with other artists, and like honestly, I remember like doing critiques is the hardest thing because you're stressed, you're nervous, you don't know what the teacher's gonna say. Some people ended up crying, like it was like some people took it so personally, it's not, it's really, you really gotta like, I made the decision to just like take a step back and like take it all in. You like, to me, I'm like, they are not my enemy. They're only telling me what they think through what they've seen in the art world, and they're telling me, how I can improve. And I kind of like, when I kind of changed my mindset and kind of like looked at it in that way, I was able to grow because I was like, oh, this is interesting, or damn, this is not interesting. I don't like what that person said. I don't think I'm gonna do that. And I got to take in what I wanted. And I feel like what I noticed in art school is that a lot of people are very stubborn. Like a lot of students are stubborn, and they don't want to kind of like change. And that's all right. You don't have to change. But to me, because I chose this time at school to experiment a lot, I discovered my style. And if I was stubborn and was like, no, I'm not going to change, I'm not going to listen to that teacher, I wouldn't have found my style. And so there's a lot of people who tend to be really, really stubborn, don't want to change, don't want to take anything what people said, and they think that the teacher is just their enemy. And sometimes there are cases where the teacher is actually mean. Like, I'm not gonna lie, I've had friends that their teachers were really mean, but I'm just happy I didn't have any teachers that were like that, but like that were just really mean and considerate and things like that, and were like really like targeting them in a way. And so, but for me, because I did that, and because I was like, okay, I'm gonna take this year. I think it was like in 2018 that I really took it differently, and was like, I'm gonna take this year to really experiment and try different things, and like listen to the teacher, try what they say. And I was like, okay, now I understand, and I could grow from that. Even like, when I was in high school, I used to do really, really small paintings, and I was comfortable with that. I was so used to that. And then when I got to college, at Dawson, I had a teacher that like literally forced us to buy a 48 by 60 canvas, and like it was just so big and it was scary. And like when I painted on that, it was like, whoa, like I was like, this is amazing. Like there's so much space to like paint your ideas. Like, although it's not easy to transport, obviously, and it's, I was so like comfortable with being so close to my work that you often have to back up and look at it as a whole. But it was just, if I didn't go to school, I wouldn't have been who I am today. I wouldn't have been inspired by other people and their experiences. I wouldn't have seen other kinds of works besides my own, besides like, you go to the museum, you see work, yeah, but like seeing other students and how they kind of like interpret, even like when there's the nude models, just how they interpret that and they paint it their own way is so interesting. And so I feel like for me, it was the best thing in my entire life. It was like, I cannot say anything bad. Although sometimes there's teachers that don't really teach you, but there are teachers that go out of their way and challenge you. And those are my favorite teachers, and they're always the teachers that you're gonna remember when you get out of school, you know?
Right.
And so for me, I feel like if you want to go to art school, you gotta be ready for that. You gotta be ready for the deadlines. You gotta be ready for the critiques and people maybe being harsh, and you gotta be ready for all that. And it's just it's hard, but if you take it differently and you take a different approach and you take it in and you realize that people are not trying to attack you, they're just, saying their opinion. And even like the teachers would say, we're doing this because you as an artist have to be ready, because there are people that are going to critique your work. There's going to be people that are going to be writing about your work, if you get to that point. So you have to be ready that not everyone's going to like what you do,
Yeah.
But for me, like, there are some people as well, I forgot to mention, there are some people that had already found their style even before university, that that we went to the same program, but like, and they continued to explore as well, and it's just that their work became stronger. But also for someone that's getting out of university, I would say two things probably: be friends, like talk to everybody. I was highly introverted, so I did not talk to everyone. So this is really sad. I should have, but I talked to people that we still talk to. I still, they still invite me to their shows and things like that. So it's like, talk to other artists, and even add them on Instagram. Add them on Instagram, add them on Facebook, invite each other to events, even find your own little community, and like my work, my work really went into Canadian Arts, a magazine, because I had this teacher this teacher was one of my, I think last year teacher, or it was before that, I can't remember. But this teacher was probably one of the teachers who would challenge me. She would be like, I would call her a mom because she was annoying. Because she saw something great in you, she was annoying. So she was always like, come on, And so like for me, she was like a second mom. And like, but it was, it's all love, obviously, she probably saw something in me. And so I remember I took her I took her again as a teacher for another class, and because I knew she was gonna push me, and she did, and she saw potential in me, and I got to show my work in that magazine. But yeah, and I feel like if you talk to teachers, if you feel comfortable, if you're able to talk to teachers, I was never that comfortable with teachers, but like it's very rare that I felt comfortable having conversations with teachers. But some people, they like talking to teachers, so yeah, even add them, like be friends with them, ask them about their experiences. I feel like teachers are very open. I feel like we don't ask enough, and I always get super excited when a teacher's like, okay, today's gonna be the day I'm gonna show you my work and I'm gonna talk about my journey. I'm like, yes, finally, I'm gonna understand, because you've been there, you've struggled, you know how it is, and so like even talk to your teachers, ask them questions, and things like that. I feel like a lot of teachers are very open. It's just that people we just don't ask. And it's just so like when you come out of school, make sure you have a community or a few people that make sure that you follow galleries on Facebook, on Instagram, and are up to date on call for artists and stuff like that, because that's how I found a lot of exhibitions. Also some friends, they would send me stuff, even other artists that I didn't know from school, even other artists. Like there was one artist, Stanley Février. He's a Black Haitian artist from Montreal. He's a professional artist, and I remember I saw his work because I think in my art history class we went to his one of his shows, and I saw his work, and I knew inside of me, like inside of my heart, I was like, I'm gonna see him one day. And I did. Like I was a little guy, and was whole like his how do you say, his studio was there, and I was like, oh my gosh. And I just took a risk. I was like, I know I feel really nervous. I've always wanted to meet him. So I just went in the studio and I was like, hello. And another thing is take risks. Go talk to that person. Oftentimes people want to talk too. Like they don't mind having a conversation with you. And it's often the things that we miss in life is when we don't go out there and take a risk. And that's what happens. And also another thing, submit to magazines, take nice pictures of your work, learn on the internet as well how to take really good pictures of your work. Send it everywhere, man. Send it to magazines. Like I sent it to the Link, and that's when like my practice really flourished. After the Link, then I like someone that read the Link magazine, which is the Concordia magazine, or someone saw it, and I was invited on Radio Canada. So like there's things like if you don't take risks, you won't know. And so don't be afraid to get no's. Like really don't be afraid. Like and send emails, you know, like share your work and show it to people. And I feel like if I hadn't shown my work, he's the one who actually bought the conversation. Like, and if I had never showed him my work, he wouldn't have, you know, bought it, right? And I just like, you know, I was like, oh, do you want to see my work? You know, we're just talking. I was asking questions. I'm like, do you want to see my work? He's like, oh, you're a painter. I was like, yeah. And then all that. And then he was like, yo, I love this. And he bought it, you know? And it's just, it's just all that, you know? And I feel like we really need to be comfortable. And also, don't give it, like, after school, I feel like I felt like a lot of pressure and mentally and all that. And I kind of like had to like calm down and kind of understand, like, don't put too much pressure on yourself. You could still, even though you felt like, because I found my style really, really late, you know, it took me years before finding my style. So don't put too much like pressure on yourself. And like also you have to like continue painting outside of school, and to kind of like create your own projects, and also to I was gonna say something else and it's like leaving me. Oh yeah, discipline yourself. Like I create a schedule. I bought a calendar and I create, okay, I'm gonna paint this day. I'm gonna paint this day. And how I work is that I always have to mentally prepare myself the day before that that's what I'm gonna do tomorrow, or else like when I arrive, like when it's that day, I don't feel like doing anything. So I kind of like because I know myself enough, I'm able to keep that, you know, schedule, follow that schedule, and like be like, okay, tomorrow you're gonna paint. Okay, you're gonna paint tomorrow. All right. And so when it's the day, I'm able to paint and able to focus, and so also obviously have a sketchbook and like really all the ideas that pop up, write it, draw it, all the ideas, because you never know. Because sometimes I've had ideas and I'm like, it's all right, but then I took it like a few months later. I'm like, oh, this was actually a good idea, and I kind of changed it up and I bettered it, you know. And so like really get a sketchbook, write everything down, and then yeah. so but yeah, most important thing, follow galleries, Montreal galleries and stuff like that on Facebook, even art magazines, and things like that. Don't be afraid to share your work with the world. Do not be afraid. It might be scary, yes, but be proud of your work. Even though it's a work in progress, you're at a certain place, and it's okay to not be fully proud of it, but share it. Someone might even like it and be like, wow, this is great. So really don't be afraid. Like just push yourself.
No, I think you gave a lot of good advice. Yeah, like take risks, submit your stuff everywhere. Rejection's not a bad thing. You know, rejection just means you gotta work harder. Don't take things personally, which is even like a life hack, I feel, at the same time too, but also applies to your art, like to art as well. Because like if someone says no to you, or someone says, oh, it's not that great, it's like, okay, how can I do things better, you know? But yeah, I think you gave a lot of good advice, and I hope people take it, and I hope that I might take it too. I'm like, send emails to magazines. I did not know that hack. Okay, I'm gonna put that on my like to-do list. Email Canadian Magazine, all of them. All magazine.
But even another thing, like don't like oh my gosh, I was gonna say something and now it's gone. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's
okay. It was important.
If you remember, we'll come back to it. But I will have one last question before we go into the Q&A section as well for people. Remember, you can send questions in. Esther would love them. I would love to say them to Esther and like, you know, get to know more about her work and things maybe that you heard throughout the talk so far. You're like, oh, this is interesting. I want to ask more in depth about it. But kind of going back to like everything you've mentioned in the past like hour, just talking about your body hair activism, your work and stuff like that. I'm really curious to know, like, what would you tell your 11-year-old self back then when you started growing body hair and like specifically chest hair, when you felt like very anxious and like scared and talking to God, like, why do I have this? Yeah, what would you tell her now? And like, you think she'd be very proud of you that you're normalizing the way your body looks and what chest hair looks as well?
I've been asked that question. It's such a weird question. I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah. Knowing myself and how I was very shy. I was very insecure. And talking to myself and being like, you know what? The thing that you hate the most about yourself would be like your greatest power. Like it would be like the greatest thing that ever happened. And so I feel like that's what I would say. And, you know, as a kid, I always thought, you know, I'm going to be a famous artist. Honestly, I've always believed it. And when I really believe in things, it really happens. So that's like I say. But yeah, but I already believe like I like, you know, people always want to put you down when you're in art, you know, when you're in visual arts, and like, you're never going to be successful. And I'm just like, you know what? I chose this. I know everything that could happen to me. But I chose this because I feel like this is where I want to be and this is my passion. And so yeah, I would just tell her to like not be afraid and that she's gonna outgrow this insecure phase and she's gonna become this strong woman that she wants to be and she wanted to be. And so I'd really tell her that the thing that she hates the most will be her greatest strength and that everything will be okay.
Aw, that's so beautiful. Your greatest strength. Yeah, because like, yeah, you're the thing that made you feel the worst about yourself is the thing that makes you feel most empowered now as an adult and like as throughout the rest of your life and has empowered other people too. I think that's very beautiful and a great message to people. And overall, oh my gosh, amazing. But we have some questions from a couple of people. So, okay, from Shanila, who I know. Hey, Shanila, a pal of mine. She says, who are some of your favorite artists / accounts that touch on body hair?
I don't know any other artists that touch on body hair. Maybe a few that like post, I guess, characters with armpit hair. I think it's Tina Adult. She's another Black woman that paints Black characters with armpit hair and a bit of body hair. But my artists, I don't honestly get super inspired by many artists. I just look at work really quickly and I'm like, okay, this is interesting. But I never had one particular artist that I felt like, okay, yes, I'm gonna follow their footsteps, you know. But I looked around, like I obviously Jean-Michel Basquiat because I liked his I had the word in French, but I liked his process as an artist, I guess, that like his growth, I guess, as an artist. I thought it was inspiring, but also like my goodness, Kent Monkman, I think, was a Canadian artist. He's like one of my faves. Carrie James Marshall as well, one of my faves. I really love the way he paints Black characters. And yeah, oh yes, yeah, her too. Someone wrote to Shira. Yes, I know her as well. I forgot to mention her. but yeah, so I feel like in the art world, those are the kind of works that inspire me because they're really challenging. They're the question, you know, they make you ask questions.
Yeah.
And especially Ken Lungman was because because at school, people pressure you to be an oil painter. Like you're really pressured to become an oil painter. Everyone's like, yeah, it's the best thing and it makes it so well. And I'm like, I don't want to be an oil painter. I don't want to smell all these toxic fumes. I don't want to wait a whole month for my painting to dry, you know, even though you can use a medium for it to dry faster. But I was like, I don't want to be that person. And like looking at Ken Monkman's work, he painted a lot of acrylic works and they were wonderful, you know, they are wonderful. And so like he was inspiring in that way. I was like, I can make wonderful things with acrylic. I don't need to be an oil painter to make great things. And so I was like, kind of like, in a way, I was a little bit stubborn. I didn't want to switch to that because, you know, I was pressured. I was like, I don't want to do that. You know, I'm happy with acrylic. I'm comfortable with it, you know?
You also want to be your own person as well. You don't want to fit into everyone else, right? And like, I think thinking about Kent Monkman's work, which is like huge paintings, and they depict so much very interesting imagery where I can see like the connection between both your. I don't know if it's making it. Maybe I'm making a jump, but like, but the connection between his work and your work, where it talks about like certain topics and has like these kind of like his shows like very chaotic situations that, but very relatable to what happens to indigenous people in this country and through colonization. But yeah, if people don't know who Kent Monkman is, you should go see his work because it's very good, or check it online. There's a bunch of questions coming in. This is great. Love the flood of questions. Okay, for the first one, Shelly says, this is in the chat, so I'm not able to show it in the Q&A, unfortunately. You mentioned that you want to make sure that the photos of the Lavender Project look professional-like or editorial. Did you get any help from friends or photographers to achieve this? I think you mentioned a bit it was all by yourself, but were there friends with other people that helped you? Or
no, that's all by myself. Okay, I had a tripod. And I bought this camera. It really happened. I started doing my own pictures because I was tired of the like just a bit modeling, because I feel like photographers kind of like take advantage of you and things like that. So I was tired of like the way they were also taking pictures of me sometimes, the way they represented me. I felt like I didn't love always their work, and I didn't like love the way I saw myself through their lens. And so I was like, you know what, I'm gonna buy my own camera. And I did that. I would practice and and then I bought a tripod and I bought a little remote. So that's how I do it. Yeah, I do it by myself. If there's pictures on my account that is not me, that I tagged the photographer. I think there's 2 series that aren't by me. But yeah.
Cool. Michael says, I'm gonna put this live, but is there, oh, okay, let me say this again because it's spell mistake. Is there any projects that you have done that you didn't talk about or you would like to collaborate on? I think that's what they mean. Let me see this. Let me rephrase this. It says,
Okay.
is there any projects that you've done that you didn't talk about? Oh yeah, so many projects you've done in the past or currently that you're working on you didn't talk about and would like to elaborate on, like talking a bit more about it.
Maybe not concerning my body hair activism, because like the pictures I take are mostly like surrounded with like clothing, so I always like take some like the clothes and then take a picture. So I don't really necessarily have a next. Well, I'll always take pictures of my body hair activism like in that account. But concerning my painting, yes, I in my painting work, I'm working on this project, which is like creating my own tribe of women that are hairy. So that's what I'm up to. I don't want to talk about it too much. It's gonna be a surprise.
A little teaser, spoiler alert, a little bit, just a little bit. The next question comes from your mom, which is very sweet, Betty. Do you think it's a good thing for parents to encourage their children in art because it's not easy in society that believes that being an artist is good, which is a very good point. My mom is like, Black mom, Ethiopian, she's like, art, what's that gonna do? And I'm like, it's gonna do something. Just wait on it. But yeah, what do you think?
Yeah, I think that, if I didn't have supportive parents, I wouldn't be here, obviously. So yeah, since it felt like it's very important. So I feel like as a parent, I'm not a parent, but I feel like as a parent, what I've noticed from how my parents were with me is it's very important to be aware of what your children like to do. So like as a kid, I liked drawing. So my mom was like, you know what? She's very inspired by drawing. I'm gonna put her in an art program. And because she did that, that's where I am today. So yes, it's very important. It's true because in the Black community, it's like very discouraged to be an artist, extremely discouraging, and all that. Even from other Black people, will be like, what? Even like when I had shows and I had Black friends, and they were like so surprised that my parents were there. They're like, what? Your parents are there? I'm like, yes, they support my work. They're like, what? I'm so surprised, And I'm like, yes, So I feel like when you have parents that support you and that push you and that see your potential, you really go further. And I feel like it's very important when parents are like involved in their children's lives and really see what they're passionate about, And even through my body hair, I had like I'm really close to my mother, and like I was always talking about it to her before my lavender project, and telling her how I felt. Like I wasn't sure if I wanted to keep it. So she's like, if you keep it, that'll be also, you could, if you don't want to keep it, you could remove it. But if you want to keep it would also be great. People are tired of social, societal beauty standards, and some people are trying to change and things like that. So it would also be great, So she was always there for me. So I feel like it's very important because oftentimes, like I feel like a lot of people at the end of the day, we choose a job that we hate. And it's important to have a job that we love and that we feel very like inspired doing. And so like it's part of life, and it's great to be happy to love what you do, even if you want to keep it as a hobby, that's also fine, And so I feel like it's really important because if there weren't like people like Jean-Michel Basquiat and other Black artists, doing so many great things, like where would we be, Yeah. And even there's been artists in our ancestors. There's a lot of artists everywhere through like, in our ancestors and all that. So like art was a real thing back then as well. And so it's not just for white people, although because it's hard and like parents, like especially immigrant parents, they had it hard and they want their child to be super successful, make a lot of money so it could be easier for their children as well. But I feel like it's also important to just like let your child like, explore in life and become what they truly want to be, and to push them and to be able to see their vision as well.
Yeah, I would definitely love that. 2021, Black parents are encouraging their kids to do art. Fingers crossed. Don't be mad at them, please. But the next question, which is a really interesting question, I think this is something that's been talked about a lot on social media in the last couple of weeks. I don't know if you saw, ID posted Instagram post about like a white girl with like a unibrow and saying it's like a trend now. So this question from Shandy. It says, how do you feel about the current trend of white women being hairy positive when women of color have been painted as dirty, savage for doing exactly the same until now, for a while now?
I mean, I guess that's just part of life. They do that often. I don't know what else to add, but it's just like, obviously, to me, I'm just like, okay, I can't do anything about it, honestly. There's things that you just can't do anything about. And you just, like, we live in a white world, on and there's things that we can do, and then we should do it. But if we can't do anything about it, obviously, even though that more white women are deciding to accept the body hair, honestly, I'm fine with it, because obviously they've also been in the same situation. Like, as a Black woman, there's sexism, and also racism. But as a white woman, there's sexism. So obviously, as white people, as white women, they weren't allowed as well to keep their body hair. So it was also seen on them as dirty and disgusting, although on us it was worse. But I feel like I'm happy if they feel like keeping their body hair, and that they feel it's empowering. So I'm not gonna judge them for it. But this is the world we live in.
Unfortunately, yes. I think I would say maybe if people can keep sending questions. There's one other question, but I think it's like a nice way to almost end the Q&A maybe. But if people can ask more questions, that'd be great too. It says, where do you see yourself next, and where do you see yourself for your art next as well?
Honestly, I'm gonna say this unfiltered. Ever since I was a kid, I knew I was gonna be in magazines, and that's like I was like, I'm gonna be in magazines, and I'm gonna be on billboards. And so I've always had that mindset. So when it comes to body hair activism, I see myself in a magazine. That's what I see in that. I see myself, reaching people internationally, globally, and kind of having this conversation, and changing the way we see this taboo. And so then, like, freeing other women that were afraid, and through my Lavender project, there's so many women that have been inspired and have felt that they've been set free in a way, because it is very burdening to be the only person with chest hair, especially as a woman. So it's like, or even having facial hair and not understanding where it comes from. Although there's honestly, there's people that have PCOS, so it's like a certain disease that causes you to be hairy. But at the same time, if this causes you to be hairy, to be okay with it, and not, to not be afraid. And so that's what I want to, like, I want to normalize body hair. And that's what I see in my body hair activism. I want to reach, like, all women, and be able to free these women, and because I know what they're going through. A lot of women have shared their experiences, and I fully relate. I know that it's hard. It was hard, and to be in that dark place and not knowing what to do. And so and for my art practice, I see myself in galleries and museums. I have projects in mind, and I still have to have my solo exhibition. So I want my solo exhibition to be this year, but obviously we're gonna see with everything. But I'm planning this year. So so I'll keep you guys updated.
Everyone manifests for Esther that she'll get a solo show this year. There's actually another question, which is actually a really great question, because I was also curious about this too when I was looking at your website. Is there a way for people to, like, buy your art or get your art, or do you have, like, merch that features, like, certain designs that you have, or maybe as well the different paintings you have on merchandise and stuff?
Not yet, but I do have paintings in my website. It says when you click on my website, it says shop. So when you click on that, you'll see my paintings.
Right.
I need to add more though. but yeah, since I'm just, like, in the process of, like, making a lot of work, I'm not, like, submitting as much. I'm really focused. Like, right now, even my teacher had encouraged me, like, now that you're done with school, focus on creating a body of work. So that's what I'm focusing on. And so that's what's going on.
Right. Cool. I feel like the Q&A went really well. People asked, like, a range of different questions. I'm curious to know if you want to mention anything else before we close out this lovely talk and unfortunately say bye. But yeah, you want anything else?
There's always things happening with me, so follow. You'll see there's always stuff.
On Instagram, Facebook, maybe, or just Instagram?
Yeah, I have a Facebook page. It's also Queen Esther and artist Esther CUJAH. I also have YouTube, Queen Esther. I made it, like, 3 videos on body hair. So that too. So You can find me literally everywhere, even on Twitter.
Oh, here. We got the painting, we got the thoughts, we got everything.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for everything.
Thank you.
But we're gonna have Carrie come in and do a little outro.
Thank you so much. Wow, this was so great. Thank you so much, Esther and Mahlet, for such a wonderful conversation and for sharing your insightful comments with us today. I think I speak on behalf of all the viewers when I say that it was such a privilege to listen to you both this afternoon. Thank you again, Esther, for sharing your artistic practice and process. It was so inspiring to hear about your work. And thank you, Mahlet, for being such a wonderful moderator and shaping this beautiful conversation. So thank you so much both. We'd also like to thank ForSpace for their hospitality and generous support in helping us facilitate this event. So thank you, Anne and Douglas from ForSpace. And finally, we'd just like to announce that our third and final event of our Coffee Date series is happening next Wednesday at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and will feature curators and programmers from a couple of Montreal galleries. So if curation is something you're interested in, please join us next week. And you can find all of this info on CUJAH's, Yiara's, and ForSpace's social media. And we've also shared a link to the Facebook event in the chat. So thanks everyone for coming today, and we hope to see you next week.